Hello, welcome back to Bebop Review. This is Lydian Chromatic concept number 15. I just want to go back to the chart I showed at the beginning of video 3 of this series and make sure we all understand these terms now. The first one, tonal gravity, is what the Lydian Chromatic concept of tonal organisation is all about. To Russell, this is the most important idea in the book. Tonal gravity asserts that all the notes in the Western order of equal temperament gravitate towards a central tone. The strength of this gravity depends on how far away any note is on a scale of perfect fifths. This excludes the 8th perfect fifth, which Russell sees as having the weakest tonal gravity. However, the Lydian chromatic concept holds this idea for all other notes in the chromatic scale. Unity means the idea of chord scale unity, the perfect chord for any scale, or the perfect scale for any chord, which according to Russell is always some form of Lydian scale, that is, a scale with a raised 4th degree. The primary principal chord is the most ingoing or consonant chord given for any Lydian scale. Chord mode means the unity of chord and scale. The chord part of the term represents the vertical aspect and the mode part represents the horizontal aspect. Supervertical TG melody is a concept born out of volume 2 of the Lydian chromatic concept that has of yet to be published. It refers more to free jazz and the work of Ornette Coleman and others. I gave my own ideas of this in video 6 of this series. Tonic station is an area of music that represents final or resting places. In the Lydian chromatic concept, this would be a chord progression that moves through a cadence centre and ends on the two most final sounding chords, either chord 1 or 6, the tonic station. PMG means primary modal genre. This is the idea that each mode of the Lydian scale represents certain types of chords, and these chords basically remain of the same type even when the Lydian scale is changed for another scale on the same modal degree. For instance, the chord on mode 2 of F Lydian would be G7, a dominant chord, and some form of dominant would also appear on mode 2 of the Lydian augmented and diminished, etc. PMT means primary modal tonic. Any chord within the Lydian chromatic concept has a modal tonic as its root. The root of the primary chord of any modal genre is its PMT. For instance, the primary chord of mode 5 of F Lydian would be F Lydian with C in the bass, so the primary modal tonic would be C. Outgoing and ingoing refers to the music moving further in or out from the tonal centre. GIS means Generalized Interval System and refers to the book by David Lewin on transformation theory. It is Lewin's way of formalizing, in his words, the directed measurements, distances of motions that we often understand as characteristic textual features of a given musical space. It is beyond the scope of this critical analysis to go deeper into Lewin's work, but we will look at it as a means of identifying bars for analysts of the Lydian chromatic concept. Vertical polymodality means the playing out of the standard key of a tune using the vertical scales of the Lydian chromatic concept. Because the Lydian chromatic concept is chromatic, it invites polymodality. Parent scale means the original parent scale for any chord. So for instance, the parent scale for a G7 chord would be F Lydian diatonic, although it could also be something else depending how the chord is played, which we will be explaining in this video. Parent Lydian tonic means the tonic of the parent scale for any chord. So for the chord G7, the parent Lydian tonic would be F. Vertical tonal gravity refers to music played in a vertical manner, that is, playing on every chord as the music moves through a progression, as was the case with Coleman-Hawkins. Horizontal tonal gravity refers to the playing of one scale over a region of music and moving towards a tonic station or cadence centre, as was the case with Lester Young. Verticalized horizontal melody means the playing of a horizontal melody, that is, a melody with natural fourth, over a vertical tune. Usually this happens for only one bar as opposed to playing over a region of music. Okay, so I just want to go back to this comment by John Jacquard. It's this bit here which bothered me. I said I didn't agree with him last time I looked at this comment, so I want to look at it in a bit more detail now. He says tonal music language, functional harmony, is absolutely different than the Lydian chromatic concept. There is no such thing as tonic or subdominant or dominant functions in the Lydian chromatic concept. And then he goes on here to show that all the functional harmony related to C major stays identical, except it all exists within one chord, F major. And then he writes here, look, D minor 7, G7, C major 7, right, in top register, while F major 7 is in the bass. And then he's wrote it here better. You won't put F major 7 over there because you're going to get an avoid note between the E and F. He said F over 7 over F A C, this is better. G, B, D, F over F, A, C. So there's going to be no avoid notes in that bit. So I'll just put that into Sibelius and let you look at it. Okay, so I've just written it out in Sibelius. This is what he said. This is the F major triad, right, in the bass. And then this would be D minor, G7, C. I've actually written it like this. And he says that all the functional stuff exists within this F major triad thing. You know what I mean? You should be able to hear it. But if you listen, you can't hear no function. I've actually put these up quite high so you can hear the bass notes. If you put this F major triad right down there, you can hardly hear those bass notes. And these do stand out as a 2-5-1, right? Because this is obviously D minor G7 C, this top bit. But if you put these up so you can actually hear the bass line, it just sounds like an F major chord with different extensions. Have a listen. See, to me that just sounds like same chord, just with slightly different extensions on top. So you can't say that the tonic, dominant and subdominant functions are actually operating within this thing. They're not. There's no operation there I can hear. It's all just the same chord. So, but the Lydian chromatic concept does actually. I don't actually agree with what he actually says when he says here he's absolutely different. You know, there's no such thing as tonic subdominant. When Russell talks about horizontal music, he's saying it's all progressing. You know, to a certain tonic station. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like a bad thing because you know what I mean. It's not. Each chord is not in unity, right? But I think you still get tonic, you know, the main functions in the music, because basically if you listen to a 2-5-1, you know, D minor G7 C, and you're having the root notes or D, G and C, you know what I mean? You're getting the chords played at the top, you know, in basic form. That's a cadence, isn't it? You're moving towards the perfect cadence. So I don't think you can say that the Lydian chromatic concept doesn't have functional harmony, right? It does have it does imitate functional harmony, right? If you play it by using the normal chords that we get in normal tunes and that, you can certainly write a tune out, right? And it'll sound very much like functional harmony in Lydian chromatic concept, and you can write it in such a way that it sounds just like a normal functional harmony tune, you know what I mean? Except it looks at the music differently, and I want to go into this. Now, you don't have to believe me on this, right? You don't have to believe. You can believe what John says, right? And that there's no functional harmony in the Lydian chromatic concept, right? And that's how you should do all the chords, right? Like that. So they sound like this. Which to me sounds like nothing. I don't want to play music like that. So what I'm going to say is that the Lydian chromatic concept does have functions, right? Right. You can play it like John played it if you want. You can do it like that, right? And it just has those what they call successive type chords, you know what I mean? Although successive type chords would be moving through different keys, but you would get a chord that's just unique in its own sense, you know what I mean? But most music that I know of and what you will play, right, is all got functional harmony. So you need to just look to see how the Lydian chromatic concept does that in functional harmony, right? So let's go back to the table that I did ages ago, right? So we'll have a look at it again. Okay, so this is our familiar table that I've put on. So this is my argument, right? All the chords, right, if you play a normal tune, a pop tune or whatever, this is how to see it. All the chords that are on mode 1 here, all in that top line, they are all tonic function chords. All the ones on 2 here, they're all dominant function chords, right? And all the ones here, where it says 6, they are all subdominant function chords, right, in F Lydian. However, this 6 line can also be tonic function chords in a minor key. Okay, so you got to think about that. And then it's up to you to decide, you know, you could put this +4, B minor 7 flat 5, you can see all those as dominant chords, right? And you could see the 7s here as some kind of tonic function chord. But these are the most important. 1, 2, and 6. Tonic, dominant, subdominant, right? Right, now what John says, we can just go back to John's comment and what I disagree with him. Right, what John says is how it works is all the functional harmony related to C major stays identical, except it all exists in one chord, F major. See, I don't agree with that. He says D minor, G7, C major, top well, F in bass, which I've just showed you. But I understand what he means. It means that you can still produce all that with F Lydian, right? With F Lydian scale. But you don't do that. If you're talking about Lydian, so if you're talking about Lydian and you talk about a 2-5-1, you've got chords 6 and 2. That's how it works. 6, 2, and then 1, right? Or if you were looking at it from perfect fifth movements, it would be 6, 2, 5. So you would have F Lydian with C in bass. That would be the 5 chord, right? But here we're getting 6 and 2. But you never go into F Lydian then. What you do is you change into the key of C Lydian and you put the primary chord down on mode 1, which would be C major 7 or C major, right? So you would get D minor 7, G7 in F Lydian, then it would go to C Lydian. Now, if you remember, Jeff Brent argued against that. He says, well, it's all wrong because you're moving into another key. You know what I mean? You're going from F to C, which is not perfect fifth movement. You know what I mean? I mean, F should go to B flat. That's how he sees it. That's how it's been going on for hundreds of years. But I said, no, it don't work like that. This is a new type of music. And it even though it doesn't look from a key point of view like it's working right, from a perfect fifth movement to the movement through a progression to a cadence, it's absolutely perfect. You've got D minor 7 going to G7, going to a chord which is C major, right? Even though the key might be C Lydian, right? But the root of the chord is C major, so it's still perfect fifth movement, so it's perfect. So I don't understand what Jeff Brent's moaning about, to tell you the truth. Right, so still looking at all these top notes. I hope you're following me on this. So looking at all these tops. Now, I said in one video that the F acoustic scale was exactly the same as this, the Lydian dominant, if you've changed this to another key and made that F7. So if you change this to E flat Lydian, so E flat Lydian would be E flat, it would be here on the 1, right? Then you would get F here. So this would be F7, sharp 11 or flat 5, which is exactly the same as that F7. See, you've got that B, so it's a sharp 5, a flat 5, isn't it, or a sharp 11. So the acoustic scale is same in both. But it doesn't work like that. I were interested to see if people would come back at me on this. That's why I actually put it in. Because Rick Beato would say, all kind of modes, they're all the same. And all those people I quoted earlier on in this course, they all say, oh, modes, it's all the same, you know, the melodic minor and all this is same as Lydian, but it's not the same. That chord there is not the same as that, even though the notes are all identical, right? These chord modes are different, right? Because that one is tonic function, right? And that one is dominant function. Oops, sorry. It's dominant function, right? I'll just give you see. This is one of the things I like about the Lydian chromatic concept. It is so precise. You can be very precise with it on exactly what you're actually saying. So let me just, I'll just give you an example of this, okay? Okay, so if you look at this top piece of music here, we've got an F Lydian flat 7 scale, or what's called an F acoustic scale, right? It's Lydian because it's got this raised 4 here. If it was mixer Lydian, it would be F, G, A, B flat, wouldn't it? C, D, E flat. Right, so, but it doesn't mean anything there. We're just seeing it as a scale, and most people just identify it as a scale. Now we've got two representations of it here in different pieces of music. This first piece of music is the last 4 bars of the A section of I Got Rhythm, George Gershwin's I Got Rhythm. And here you can see you've got this F7 going to B flat major 7. So this F7 is operating as a dominant chord, isn't it? It's dominant to this B flat major 7, so it's driving into that. Now this bottom line here is different. If you look, it's still a 2-5-1, but instead of having 2-5-1 going to an F chord, we've got an F7 chord here, right? This is the last 4 bars of Charlie Parker's Now's the Time blues, right? 12-bar blues. So here, the F7 is actually operating not as a dominant, but as a tonic function chord. It's actually called, a chord like this would be called a special function dominant, right? It's a dominant chord in that it's same, it's like F7, same as that, but it doesn't have dominant function. It's got tonic function, right? Special function dominant, right? Now, if you look, go back to that table. If you look at the table again, the I Got Rhythm chord, which would be this one here, the G7 sharp, this is the Lydian dominant, right? It would be represented as chord number 2, wouldn't it? Right? Let me go back. So this in Lydian would be represented by chord number 2, right? Chord number 2 of E flat Lydian, right? So it would have dominant function, right? However, this chord, right, which is the same notes as that, would be represented by this scale because it's tonic function. You see, it's the top line. It would be F Lydian flat 7, right? Now, a lot of you are saying, what the hell is the point of this? Well, there's a big point, really, because what it means is this. If you are playing in Lydian, right, or let's just say you're Adam Neely, right? Adam Neely went to Berkeley. The Berkeley uses a chord scale system, right? It just uses a single chord that matches with a single scale, right? So you would play, I don't know, you could play that F Lydian flat 7, you know, you could say that, and you could play that over any flat 7 chord, right, which has got a raised 4th B, right? So you'd probably see that. But the thing is, it doesn't work like that in Lydian. The thing about the Lydian is it's a chromatic scale. You've always got to remember this. The Lydian chromatic concept, right? So what it means is, if you're playing this F7 acoustic scale on the Lydian flat 7, which is tonic function here, this line, you can only substitute scales that are on this top line. So you can substitute, you can go this way, you have to go this way outwards. So you're going F augmented, right, triad, F diminished, or the F blues, right? Because if you're going that way, you're going closer to the tonic, right? These are going closer to the tonic, so you're not going out, you know what I mean? So these are going further out, so that's what you're supposed to do, isn't it? However, if you're playing on this, the G7, which was an I Got Rhythm, right, which is operated as a dominant function chord, you can play the Lydian diminished scale, the Lydian flat 7, the whole tone scale, the whole tone diminished, right? But you do not play the half whole diminished or the blues, because the blues on that chord would indicate tonic function, because we've already agreed here, look, got tonic function on the 1. So basically it is not the same, is it? I don't think it's the same. I think that mode, right, mode 2, even though the collection of notes are the same, if you're thinking about the Lydian chromatic concept, which is a chromatic concept, right, which means that you can add all these other scales, then it is different to this one. Even though those two have the same notes, F7 here would be Lydian dominant, but it would indicate different scales that you can substitute over the top compared to this one, right? Do you get that? So I just want to emphasize that, because all the way through this course I've been trying to argue with people that the modes, even though they look the same, they are not the same. When people keep coming on about all these modes looking the same, they're not, because they function differently. That is function as tonic, right? However, you don't have to believe me about function, chord function. You can believe other people who are saying, like John and that, were saying there's no function in the Lydian chromatic concept, which I actually don't agree. You see, this is my version of it, and I'm just telling you what I see, and so that's how I see it. Okay, so I've given you plenty to think about there. So I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye.